probably heard this fairly bold claim made as of late. It goes something like this: we are eating less meat these days and more grains these days. And this high grain, low meat diet is the cause for the chronic disease epidemic. And of course, then if we just reverse that, eat more meat and less grains like we supposedly did 100 years ago, then we're going to be healthy again. But is this actually true is the subject of this video. The American diet has indeed changed a lot in the past 75 years. I'll show you how, but first, here is the clip of the kind of thing being said out there that we want to assess.
1970, Americans are still eating meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can look at the consequences. Just go to any Walmart in America and look in line. Look at our neighbors and our brothers and sisters, and people are sick. And it's a complete result of this distortion because we've distorted our food. Testosterone's dropping, as is meat consumption. I don't think that's a coincidence. Her great-great-grandmother was right. She primarily ate meat. I mean, you have the 1980 food guidelines, which told us eat less meat, eat more grains.
All right, let's unpack this together. First off, I want you to see how indeed terribly afflicted we are with heart disease, diabetes, cancer, compared to previous generations. We went from about 10% of the population suffering from one or more of these diseases at any given time to literally now the majority of Americans are living with or managing or dying from one of these dreaded diseases. America, we have a problem, and those out there in the international sphere, if you're eating like we are, you've got a problem as well. So what has changed in our diet since the 1950s? Let's look at this by 6 food categories, and let's see which have actually changed. Some of them have: meat, grains, sugar, fruits and vegetables, dairy and eggs, oil. Those will be our 6 categories. First up is meat. It's estimated that your great-great-great-grandmother probably ate about 170 pounds of meat per year, turn of the century, 1900. That amount dips maybe 20 to 30 pounds during the Great Depression and World War II, and then it settles back up at a baseline amount by the 1950s, with that around 160 to 170 pounds of meat per year. Now here's where things begin to change. Post-World War II America, watch this. We go from eating 170 pounds of meat per year, which was typical in generations past, to 180 in the 1960s, 190 pounds in the 70s and 80s, 200 pounds of meat by the 1980s. But pause there, because I want to simultaneously show you what's happening during that time with sugar intake. We're seeing an even bigger increase in sugar consumption, from about 90 pounds a year for the average American in the 1950s to 154 pounds is where it peaked in 1999, the year, incidentally, I graduated from high school, and I do confess to having been a substantial portion of that rise all by myself as a teen in the 90s. But check this out. For the past 25 years, sugar consumption actually drops as meat consumption continues to rise along with the chronic disease epidemic. So far, that's 2 food categories that have actually changed. Meat intake has risen, not fallen. And sugar intake rose and then fell, but is still high compared to 75 years ago. As you can see, grains did rise some during those middle couple of decades there, but in the past 25 years, we've fallen right back to where we started in the 1950s. Unfortunately, as a side note, it's almost all junk, refined flour rather than whole grains during that whole period of time. But bottom line, for change in diet, grains are not being consumed in higher quantities now than they were 75 years ago, contrary to what you heard in the clip or what's been going around out there online. Meat intake has risen, grain intake has not. How about fruits and vegetables? Pretty much the same now as in the 1950s. How about dairy and eggs? Again, pretty similar today versus in the 1950s. Now here's a food category we often overlook though, oil. Check this out. We've seen over a 3-fold, a 200% rise in oil consumption. This was by far the biggest change in the American diet over the past 75 years. So yes, Americans are way sicker than they were in the 1950s. And if it has anything to do with our diet has changed. So to sum up, we're eating more meat, more sugar, and more oil. But isn't the critically thinking viewer going, if 3 categories have risen, what has dropped to make way for the rise in meat, sugar, and oil consumption? The answer is none. we're just consuming more calories. Literally about 25% more calories, 500 more calories or so than in the 1950s. So there are the changes. What changes can we make in our diet to go to better nutrition? I'm Scott Ritsema. Follow me over at Belt of Truth Ministries. That's my main channel, linked in the description below. We'll see you guys next time.